So my name is Nathan Youngerberg, and I am a playwright, and I'm living currently between Oakland and Brooklyn, where I am right now. I grew up in Wisconsin, and I lived in Minneapolis for 15 years, which is kind of where I consider home. Life, like my life, I travel a lot to different places around the world, like Brazil and Southeast Asia. I've been to Berlin, to Paris, and when I go to those places, I'm able to kind of like unwind myself a little bit and reflect on my own life and just get into this place of kind of borrowing things from the environment that I'm in, and then also pulling things that kind of come up from my past and maybe present situations about, struggles that I'm going through, and just, I guess, life on like a grand scale in New York or in Oakland or whatever city I might be. And I spend a lot of time just walking and listening to music, and kind of my photographer eye comes out, so I'll take kind of little glimpses of little shots of life as it's kind of going by me, someone walking down the street or brownstone or maybe a lake in Oakland, and stories will come from that as I'm listening to music, and impulses will come to me, and then it will kind of erupt into this like full-blown story, and then I'll take notes on my phone, eventually piece that into some kind of a story that I might use for a play. Those places I went to, and the imagination that I used and the dreams that were born out of that always gave me something to hold on to. So no matter how difficult things appeared at that time as a child or uncomfortable, I always knew that if I could hold on long enough and get to a place where I could move myself physically into different environments and different cities and expose myself to different things, that those dreams would come true, and that once I was able to actually manifest that and live in that world, I would be more comfortable. Playwriting really excites me, and the fires are, the flames are extremely hot in that realm of my creative expression. And so I really see myself making a career out of this, although it's a really long road. It's different than anything else I've ever ventured into before, because there isn't such a clear-cut place, a clear-cut path from A to Z to get there. So it involves a lot of networking and just really getting out there and self-producing different things to get your work seen. I think just the first goal, I think, was just to actually embrace the fact that I was a writer. That's a huge goal, I think, for any artist, is to be able to claim and to own that. But when you don't really claim it and own it, there's a certain lack of seriousness that's involved. And I think once I was able to do that a few years ago, everything shifted for me. So that was kind of my first goal, was just to be able to proudly, definitively exclaim that I am a writer. I love the statement that I hear sometimes where they say writers write. A lot of times when I talk to writers who are newer than myself, and they're wondering like, how do you get into this whole thing? How do you do it? I mean, there's so many different ways to kind of navigate through this whole world, but I think at the end of the day, writers write. So even if you don't have the connections that you're seeking, you don't have the productions that you're seeking, you can always write, regardless of how busy you are or what is going on in your life at that moment. If you even take like 10 minutes or 15 minutes a day to write. And so I am very committed to that. So I try to at least, 5 days a week, if not more. So I would say, like, as a writer of color, specifically like a Black playwright, I really made a commitment to telling stories about Black people, or multiracial cast. It's very important to me. I think for one reason, because I think that more of those stories need to be told. That's crucial. And then secondly is I want to give more opportunities to actors of color. It's a very important thing to me. It's a really exciting time being in New York City right now. I moved here in 2005 because there's this amazing emergence of this Black arts movement that's happening again between Harlem and Brooklyn, and amazing friends who are writers and producers and directors, and there's so many wonderful opportunities that people are creating for our community. And I get to watch a lot of my friends and peers that are really using those opportunities to climb up the ladder in the theater world, and some people are doing some really amazing, exciting things all across the globe. So I'm really excited that I am able to be a part of this Black arts community in New York City at this time. Got a couple different things. I'm working on a reading series with my friend Daryl Sledge, who's an amazing producer that lives in Brooklyn, and so we're going to be doing that at Simplicity Cafe, which is in the neighborhood, early April. So we're going to do a night of 10-minute plays. It's going to be a reading of 10-minute plays, an excerpt from one of my full-length plays. And I'm also gearing up to do the Lorraine Hansberry Theater, which is based in San Francisco, is going to be doing a reading of my full-length play Postada Azul, which is the play that's set in Brazil. And I'm really excited about that. That's the first time a theater company has read my work and said that they were interested in. I've always been a big advocate for kind of giving back to people, people of color specifically, that are looking to pursue careers in the arts. I think especially with theater too, it's like we need more stories with people of color, specifically stories about Black people. So I always like to tell younger people too, it's like, your stories have value. Your stories have interest. And I think the more stories that we can see about people of color, it'll even things out a little bit more, inspire more people, and especially when the stories are ones that will promote positive images of people of color. And that's one thing that I'm really passionate about too in all my plays, is that I really try to focus on. So I say to other people, young people, people of color, get your stories out however you need to, if it's through poetry or you want to write a novel, even with photography. I'm a big fan of Jamel Shabazz, and I went to a screening of a documentary about him in Oakland a couple months ago, and the thing that fascinated me the most about him was that he was just this guy in Brooklyn who had a camera and had an eye, and he wanted to document the people in his world. And so he just went around and took pictures of his friends and family members and people that worked in the neighborhood and lived in the neighborhood. And years later, he went to, I think it was a book publishing company or magazine, and said, listen, I have these images of this whole hip hop culture that was originating in New York, like back in the 80s, and people were blown away. And he got an exhibit in Berlin, and one of the magazines published like an entire editorial spread. And what fascinated me the most was he was just a guy in Brooklyn with a camera, and he wanted to document what was valid to him. So, I take that statement to say that anybody can do that, and it's dangerous to project outside of yourself and think that, oh, I have to write stories that I see already, or I need to take pictures that I see already. Document what's important to you, because inevitably that's what people are going to be interested in. So I'm again Nathan Youngerberg, playwright, photographer, artist, and thank you for visiting my site.